Okay, well, welcome everyone to our VMware Visionary series. Appreciate everybody taking the time to join this really exciting topic to talk about today. And it's the Sovereign Cloud initiative that VMware has started. And we all know that how important it is from a data sovereignty standpoint to make sure that our data is never compromised or doesn't leave certain regions or areas. So hopefully you're going to all learn a lot today in this panel. I'm Dale Hoffman, and I'm responsible for our global alliance relationship with VMware. I'm joined today by three of my esteemed colleagues, Guy Bartram. Guy is a Senior Director of Product Marketing at VMware. Amit Rolani, and Amit is the Senior Director of Technology Alliances at Cloudian. And then also Nigel Houghton, who is our Senior Director of our alliances in Europe. So what I want to do today is go through a couple of questions and ask our panelists to kind of give us some good answers about what to expect with Sovereign Cloud. So first of all, Guy, I really want to comment and congratulate you and VMware for this big announcement that you guys had done at Barcelona last week at VMware Explore. I was there, and tremendous amount of buzz, tremendous amount of excitement on everyone recognizing the need for this Sovereign Cloud. So what I'd like to do is kind of get your perspective. Why is Sovereign Cloud initiative, why is that so important to VMware?
Yeah, thanks, Dale. So Sovereign Cloud is a really super important market that is evolving at the moment. It's becoming more and more important as time goes on. There is no real definition around Sovereign Cloud. It's really, when I try and explain Sovereign Cloud, I say it's all about trust, basically. It's about recognizing that your data is your critical part of your business, and ensuring that all your data remains within your kind of jurisdictional control. And what does that mean? It means that, personal information, things like that, all come under legislation like GDPR, but data about data and customer data, metadata and customer data needs to kind of remain in your jurisdiction. And when I say jurisdiction, I mean on your sovereign soil. So basically, we want to protect data. Data is going to grow your national interest and your national capability. And we want to prevent foreign access from that critical data, whether it's national, corporate, or personal data. And also we want to enable that national capability. If you think about things like AI and ML, for example, they require huge data sets. And to be able to innovate within your country and to develop new systems, new capabilities, you need large data sets to process. So it's critical that you have the data and the data is under your control. You want to fuel that innovation and you want the economic growth. And what has tended to be happening is that we've got a massive disparity in terms of cloud coverage in EMEA, certainly, and a certain amount in APJ as well, where we've got hyperscale being the predominant cloud suppliers to virtually all regions. And hyperscale come under, as US organizations, they come under the US Cloud Act. And that may mean that data may be subject to US jurisdiction, even though it's running in your country or resident in your country, is still being run by a US company. So it's super important to understand, what your data is, why it's important for you to understand the classification of your data. And VMware has developed a framework to kind of support the Sovereign Cloud initiative that we've launched. And it's really important for us because we want to make sure that, the value proposition of Sovereign Cloud is maintained in that we want to provide improved security, securing your data within the national data centers, not having that data go across borders. We want to improve compliance on an ongoing basis rather than just taking a point in time. We want to provide improved controls for visibility, auditing, and preventing unauthorized access to data by foreign entities, for example. And this is really going to help you unlock the value of your data and share the data or extend the data to national companies or clouds, and to really start, importantly, monetizing that data whilst avoiding things like lock-in, avoiding vendor lock-in, and protecting yourself from changing regulations. That's particularly important, as we've all seen. Geopolitical tensions in EMEA are pretty high, and we all are very aware of malware and ransomware, which can really affect a corporate's position. And we want to negate all of that. VMware wants to make sure that we're fueling the economic growth and innovation for customers.
Okay, great, Guy. And you had mentioned a little bit about a lot of these regional legislation or compliance things, and especially how anybody that's putting data in the public cloud, that it's not as protected as you think. So tell me a little bit about what you think is driving the overall sovereign cloud consumption.
Yeah, as I mentioned, right, public cloud has grown partly in stealth mode. Over the last 10 years, people using credit cards rather than going to their IT departments because it was easier. And we now have a huge amount of data held in public cloud, American public cloud vendors typically. And what we found is business leaders are really concerned over putting critical data into those clouds. So data that relates to operations of national interest, for example, the police, energy, defense, or heavily verticalized industries as well, where there may not be the necessary compliance in those clouds, or you're unable to find out where your data actually is. And that really has been compounded, I think, by the geopolitical changes, where lots of business leaders, again, believe that financial and environmental regulations will become more of a threat to them. So take, for example, the pressure of environment with carbon commitments. When you move to a cloud provider, you move from a greenhouse gas protocol stage 1 or 2 to a stage 3, which effectively means you're outsourced, right? The requirement of providing clean energy or renewable energy now falls to the cloud provider to provide that transparency back to you, so you can satisfy your supply chain that you're meeting your carbon commitments. So there's a lot of regulation that's been introduced the last few years that is now starting to affect businesses because it's getting included in bid processes. So if you're not compliant with those regulations, then it can be a problem. So you've got ever-changing regulations, you've got the concern about public security, you've also got massive economic pressure that we're seeing now, particularly in Europe, and inflation is going to be a threat to all businesses, whether we like it or not. And all the time we've got cyber attacks coming in. The cyber terrorists are really having a great time picking out people who are unprotected, and I think it's like 88% of boards, according to IDC, are looking at cybersecurity as a serious business risk. So protecting from all these things is really important, and businesses are starting to recognize this. And of course, you've also got to remember that data volumes are not decreasing. Data volumes grow at 26% year on year. And particularly unstructured data, which is really quite hard to manage classification of. unstructured data is growing at a higher rate, and businesses are really becoming aware that that need to manage the unstructured data is a problem. So, there's a whole load of things that are driving sovereign cloud consumption and sovereign cloud, the market. It really is a perfect storm at the moment for sovereign cloud. And this is why it's taking such a predominance in the business today.
Okay, that's great. And one last question for you, Guy. I know that you guys have VMware has a very rigorous certification program for the cloud service providers, and such. What are maybe some of the 5 things that one has to consider if they're going to go out there and build a sovereign cloud? And if you could just be brief on this, because I want to move on to Veeam and Cloudian too.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so in a nutshell, VMware's Sovereign Cloud initiative, right? It's not a program, it's an initiative, and it's an initiative for a good reason. We ask cloud providers to self-attest to our Sovereign Cloud guidance. And it is only that, it's guidance. And we established 5 kind of key pillars: data sovereignty and jurisdictional control. So having data sovereignty is more than data residency. It's about having jurisdictional control and legal control over your data. So making sure no one else can access it, no foreign bodies can get access to it. That's pillar number 1. Pillar number 2, data access and integrity. Making sure the systems are in place to ensure that access can only be validated by vetted employees, for example, or employees who are must be from the nation. Integrity, ensuring that you've got backups, ensuring that you've got disaster recovery in place, ensuring that you've got ransomware protection. And then data security and compliance is the next one. So building in zero trust is, should be everyone's starting point. Anyone who's not starting from zero trust, I would take a serious look at what they're doing. Zero trust should be your starting point, and then compliance of that zero trust and compliance with the regulations for whatever vertical you're in, not just at a point in time, but continuous. And bear in mind that people run, over multi-cloud. That's quite a hard thing to achieve. So those are the 3 core ones, and we've got a couple of kind of outsider ones. Really, I think, value add to a sovereign cloud. That is data independence and mobility. So avoiding lock-in, being able to move your workloads wherever you want, and data innovation and data analytics. So this is really the kind of ensuring that you're going to be able to, as a nation, nurture and grow your innovation, monetize your data. And that's what, data is the new oil. That's what it's all about, monetizing the data securely within your nation, and promoting growth of your national interest.
Okay, thank you. And, with all the things that Guy had just said, for example, the importance of the overall data residency and keeping everything within a sovereign region, obviously that protection of the data is very, very important, especially when you think about the zero trust, model and such. So what I want to really do is try to understand a little bit about how our ecosystem partners here, Veeam and Cloudian, can kind of help along the lines of this data protection. So Nigel, let me kind of start with you to get your perspective on the data protection side for Sovereign Cloud.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Dale, and thanks, Guy, for that really concise view of what's going on at that level. And part of what some of the things you were saying, where Veeam fits in. So Veeam's been really, as a company, started up to purely back up VMware, and obviously things have evolved now. We've got multi-cloud. So the key aim for Veeam in a couple of key areas are that we provide the same level of experience of backing data up and also recovering it, and secondly, that recovery part, being extremely good at recovering data quickly, and having some kind of orchestration around that to bring applications back up and data back up in the shortest possible term. And then, of course, as we qualify for that sovereign cloud initiative, it's about also having a mind on that zero trust element, where ensuring that data and metadata and things like that don't also come out outside of the data center too.
Okay, that makes sense. And Amit, let me ask you to add on to that from the Cloudian point of view.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. Thanks, Nigel. And Guy, great introduction to the whole sovereign piece, right? And from Cloudian's perspective, before I go further, what Cloudian does is it is a S3 object storage, which is nothing but cloud storage, which you can actually deploy either on premises or with a service provider of your choice, right? And anytime you're talking about building a sovereign cloud or a cloud service that's outside of the public cloud, you will need cloud-like storage in your own premises, right? And that's what Cloudian provides. Now, as Nigel already mentioned, Veeam is part of the ecosystem for VMware Sovereign Cloud initiative. So is Cloudian, and you can actually look at procuring Cloudian through the whole VCP program itself. The reason why this whole thing fits into the sovereign context is by definition, you as a service provider will need to create your cloud practice with some storage in mind, and Cloudian gives you that piece of the part of the solution. With Veeam and Cloudian, we actually as ecosystem partners have been working closely together for the last multiple half a dozen years, and form a very well integrated, very well vetted solution for data protection, which comes with extremely high security. And when we talk about zero trust, right, that's actually forms the DNA of the whole solution together. We talk about being able to protect your data with high scalability with 14 nines of availability, and being able to recover your data from anywhere, anytime, at the highest RTOs there is. And this is all in the possible now in the whole sovereign context. So it's a perfect solution for the sovereign cloud initiative.
Okay, thanks, Amit. So we heard a lot about the importance of the data residency in sovereign cloud, the data protection in terms of being able to back it up, provide some DR within a sovereign cloud region. But I think the thing that is really, really important here is all this predominance of all these ransomware attacks that are starting to happen. So Guy, let me just start with you. Tell me about the importance of ransomware protection as part of the Sovereign Cloud initiative.
I think from a ransomware perspective, when you're looking at protecting your data, and establishing or building up from a zero trust model, there's several things that VMware can do in terms of our stack, and Amit already mentioned, right? So our cloud platform is tightly integrated with Veeam and with Cloudian. So you've got this kind of perfect solution that users can self-serve and decide what they want to do. But equally, the networking and security play with our cloud platform, including NSX and micro-segmentation, and then building on that portfolio with things like IDS, IPS, threat detection, and threat intelligence. These are kind of fundamental for establishing a footprint of trust and of confidence. And having lots of businesses, ransomware it's not always going to be like a north-south attack. It's going to be something that originates possibly from an email or possibly within the data center domain. So being able to shut down ports or whatever mechanisms are being used to communicate and recognize what those are, and mitigate the damage ransomware can do. By doing that, obviously, you're going to be protecting your business better and protecting your data critically better. and that's why it's so important in Sovereign Cloud to have this level of protection. Our cloud provider community, who are sovereign providers, have this already, and having that in data center. So no SaaS services are involved here. This is all in data center, in jurisdictional control, in region.
Yeah, and those are good points, Guy, because basically VMware protects the overall infrastructure and the network and hopefully prevents a lot of attacks from getting in. But it's not if they get in, it's when they get in, because they're going to go after the backup data. So Nigel, tell me a little bit about how Veeam addresses an attack when it happens.
Yeah, sure. That's a good point that you made, where these ransomware attacks are also targeting the backup section because they know that that's the easiest way of getting data back. So we see those ransomware attacks coming after the Veeam infrastructure as well. So first of all, we do that integration around things like the encryption framework. We integrate with Cloudian, and Amit will tell you a bit more about that. But it's around about making sure that the data is fully protected. So you've probably heard of the 3-2-1 rule, the 3 copies of data on 2 different types of media with 1 off-site, and that's really changed to saying 3-2-1-1, where 1 is immutable, so that it cannot be changed, and that's the key part of making sure that those data sets or those backup data sets are really immutable, and you can define how long that's for. It effectively puts them into a read-only mode where they're just not being able to change by any external factor. And then when you want to recover, you also have issues where you don't know when it was infected, so you might have to go back a few iterations of backups to find a clean copy. And again, Veeam and Cloudian do help you to do that by setting up a VM sandbox and being able to test before you put that back into production. So again, we thought of everything, and the zero trust piece about really being able to test before you put stuff back into production to make that process quick and easy as possible.
Yes, and those are good points. And what I was going to say is, another key piece of this is what Cloudian provides, especially with their object lock with immutability. So do you think, Amit, you can expand a little bit about what Nigel was saying on Cloudian's role in this?
You bet. And Nigel, it's a new zip code, right? Move your data from 321 to 3211. But from specifically the object lock piece, right? What you're talking about is data immutability as your last line of defense in this whole ransomware piece, right? Guy talked about the perimeter defense, being able to create the whole environment to try and avoid the attack, but it's not about if they happen, it's when they happen. So with Veeam Cloudian, what you're talking about is the immutable copy of data as being your last line of defense. And Veeam and Cloudian both support S3 object lock, which is the standardized way of doing immutability in cloud storage, right? And we have the most certified object storage platform there is for this data immutability piece with object lock. So everything starts with Veeam in this process, where Veeam actually backs up the data. It's as easy as having a checkbox on your workflow to say that this needs to be immutable, and specifying the duration for which the data needs to be immutable. Because it's standard based, Cloudian automatically inherits all these parameters from Veeam, and the data landing in Cloudian after that is termed immutable, or in other words, tamper proof for the period of time that you've specified. Now, even if you do get attacked, which is more likely than not that it will happen at some point, these hackers will not be able to change your data, which is usually the modus operandi for ransomware attacks, which is cryptographic, or they will not be able to delete the data, which is another way that they go after your data, right? Take a copy and delete your copy so that they can hold you for ransom. So you're protected in more ways than one. And then, of course, all the other kind of security mechanisms like encryption of data in flight between Veeam and Cloudian through using SSL connections, encryption of data at rest while it's sitting in your object storage. All of these are baked into the product, so your data is protected at the level that you can possibly have anywhere else.
Okay, that's great. Amit. So I'm going to move on to our last question. And in interest of time, I'm going to ask everybody to kind of limit their answers to maybe about a minute. But real important is today, I think we see a lot of backup solutions as being reactive, especially for ransomware. So, Guy, let me start with you. How could we, as our community, be more proactive and really go after the zero trust model that you're advocating? So, 1 minute each.
Yeah, I think it's important to consider. I mean, when we're talking about security, we need to talk about the totality of the cloud footprint, not just the sovereign cloud. We're obviously focusing in here on sovereign. So think about your data in terms of the classification types and where that data is going to be running. Obviously, kind of protected data, restricted data, secret data, that needs to be isolated. That will be in kind of your sovereign environment, private stack. Restricted data or protected data that could be partially air-gapped, for example. And then there's the stuff that's going to be in public cloud environments. Protected data must be encrypted. You must have some sort of residency on it. And then you've got unclassified data as well, which can be kind of anywhere. Okay. So when you're thinking about your zero trust model, think about your data classifications. Think about your solution that you want needs to apply hopefully across multiple clouds and needs to be kind of relevant to your needs and your sovereign requirements from jurisdictional control and data classification across the different cloud models. So VMware has an extensive portfolio with our ecosystem partners with Veeam and Cloudian. We're able to do some very, very nice solutions, fully integrated into the cloud platform, fully self-service, and fully in the control of the customer. So, being proactive, look at your data, understand your data layout, understand your cloud models, and then look at what levels of trust and resilience you need to build in accordance to those cloud models.
Okay, and Nigel, anything you want to add from the Veeam standpoint?
And I'd say, I would add that that configuration of being able to bake in that security, that zero trust, again, is do come to us, come to the vendors and see how you're able to configure that to tick those boxes that you need to be able to offer that to your customer. For sure, there's some really good knowledge and experience of where we've done this already, so we're ready to impart that information.
Okay, and then finally, Amit, let me get your point of view from Cloudian's standpoint.
Yeah, just adding on to that holistic approach, make data immutability a part of your DNA. It is part of the zero trust nature of what you need to design, and it has to start not only from the perimeter protection perspective, but it has to go all the way through the stack and making sure that you have all of the security features that you can have from data at rest, in motion, immutability, everything together is what makes your data safe.
Okay, so look, to kind of wrap up here, I think we all understand the importance of sovereignty in today's privacy world, but also more important, how can we make sure that we're also going to protect things from ransomware attacks that we heard today from Veeam and Cloudian. So I think what Veeam and Cloudian doing in partnering very closely with VMware's Cloud Initiative provides a really strong solution that, hopefully all of us could feel, comfortable knowing that data stays where it's supposed to stay and that it's going to be available and protected as needed. So let me open it up to see if there's any questions in the chat. I'm going to see if there are any. I don't see any questions. Is there anything that anybody would like to maybe type in and ask? Good opportunity. You got some really smart people here just dying to answer some questions and share more of that incredible knowledge that they have. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat. We had about 65 people that attended today, and 61 of them hung in towards the end here. So I really want to thank everybody for taking the time and hopefully learn an awful lot from our panel of subject matter experts. So everyone have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye.